I don't, can you see me? Anyway, I'm here like waving. Okay, it looks like there's a tiny me. There's a mini me to the Zoom people. Hello, people. Welcome to Getting Started with LDLite for FOLIO reporting. Just 1 second here. Oh, goodness. All right. So LDLite is a tool that's part of the Library Data Platform project, and it provides basic LDP data reporting functions without requiring the LDP reporting database server to be installed. It can also be used to supplement an LDP database with additional or real-time FOLIO data. So Jen is going to talk to you in more detail about LDLite. Jennifer Eustis is here from remotely doing a virtual presentation from the University of Massachusetts Amherst. And Jen has been a very active part of the reporting community for FOLIO for many years. She was recently the leader of the metadata management report development team. She has contributed many derived tables and reports to our repositories and explained difficult questions about many things, and has been a really wonderful contributor to all of our work. She is currently the liaison from the reporting community to the product council. She continues to be a great support for us. So I will, why don't, Jen, shall we have folks hold their questions until the end and then kind of open it up for people to ask questions?
Sure. I mean, if people want to do it in the chat as well, I'm good either way.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to keep an eye on things and see if stuff comes up. But without further ado, take it away, Jen.
All right. Hello, everyone, and thank you for the great introduction, Sharon. So, as Sharon mentioned, my name is Jennifer Eustis. I'm a metadata librarian at the University of Massachusetts Amherst. So, I do want to say that I am not a programmer. I do dabble in some Python, but scripting is not my primary job. It really is metadata. So I use LDLite really to create reports for things that need to be cleaned up in FOLIO. Also, I mean, though I've, dabbled in SQL before this, I'm really not a SQL, expert by any means, which I think is really important to note because LDLite is, I think, can be used by anyone, even those who are learning. So what I'm going to do is I am going to stop my video just while I present, and then I'll turn it back on once the presentation is finished. I do have slides that have examples, but there's going to be a live demo, so wish me luck. And here we go. Yeah, I know. Here we go. All right, I'm going to stop my video. All right, getting started with LDLite for FOLIO reporting. So today I'm just going to give you what is LDLite and where can you find resources. Then we go into the live demo, and I have included screenshots. Even if you want to look at this at a later date, at least you have screenshots. And then we will end with questions. So what is LDLite? LDLite is a lightweight open source reporting tool for Okapi-based services. So it is part of the Library Data Platform project and provides basic LDP functions without requiring the server to be installed. So that's directly, I think, a direct quote from Nasib. So my way of explaining LDLite is really, it's a way to provide access to FOLIO data for reporting and creating lists by pulling down data from the FOLIO APIs into a Postgres database. So what do you need to do to install LDLite? And so I should say that I have not installed it. So we have a systems librarian here who did that for us. We have other systems librarian in the five colleges consortium that have installed it locally as well. So it definitely is possible, but you do require knowledge of Python and how Python creates a Postgres SQL. Now, in the resources that I link out to, there are step-by-step instructions on how to do that. That was provided by Nassim Nassar, who created this tool. But of course, you know, it is kind of working at the command line. So if you can get someone to install it for you who has more knowledge of that, definitely that's a plus. But of course, you know, anyone can do this if they really want to. So what data can be found in LDLite? Really, if there's an API for it, then the data can find its way to LDLite. So that covers pretty much a lot of things in FOLIO. The only thing that I know we don't have data for is really the e-holdings. Our e-holdings is linked to holdings linking and management for EBSCO. So that data doesn't appear. There isn't really an API for that. There is an API, but it's an API that goes from e-holdings to HLM. So we don't have that information. But you can download everything or data from one or even a few selected FOLIO apps. So what does that mean? If I just need information for orders, then I can just download data from the orders API. If I need everything, then you download like everything that you can get your hands on. What is the difference in between LDLite and other databases or reporting tools in the LDP project? So in the LDP project, there's what's called Metadb, LDP1 or version 1, and then LDLite. So LDP1 is kind of the first iteration of the reporting tool. It brings down historical tables, especially which is good for circulation, and then it can be updated nightly, for instance. Metadb is kind of the next version of LDP1. It is synced to FOLIO and updates, I believe, every 30 minutes or so. A lot of the JSON objects have already been extracted in Metadb, which they haven't been in LD1. And so the community has been working, especially with LDP1, on extracting JSON objects so that you can, it's easier to create your queries in that case. LDLite, in this sense, is more like Metadb in that the JSON objects have already been extracted and transformed in the Postgres database tables. So what are the pros and cons to LDLite? So the pros, you can install and maintain this locally. So here at the 5 colleges, we do not have Metadb, we do not have LDP1. So this is something that we can just do ourselves and offer to all of the schools that are part of the 5 colleges. And I guess I should have said beforehand, I'm sorry, the 5 colleges consist of Amherst College, Hampshire College, Mount Holyoke, Smith College, and UMass. So we share one installation of FOLIO, and also we share one installation of LDLite. As I said, you can download snippets of data. You don't need to have everything brought down from the APIs. And there is a very strong and active community of learners for LDLite as well as LDP1 and Metadb. The cons with LDLite is there are no historical tables. So if you need kind of a history, for example, in circulation, then you kind of have to take snapshots every day with LDLite, which we don't do here. So, well, that's a disadvantage, but we live with it. A con is it's installed locally and maintained locally, which means you do have to figure out kind of if something isn't working, you do have to figure that out. And so far, it runs really well. The only problem we've had is kind of with the Mark SRS table, but thankfully some of those bugs have been fixed. There's also no front-end user interface, so sometimes people are a little hesitant to say of writing SQL queries. So what we've done here in the 5 colleges is our systems librarian has created kind of a sort of front end using Python and several libraries, I'm not sure which, where the person can just put in variables and then they get a spreadsheet automatically. But we also have a lab session where people learn how to write their own queries. So, I mean, I guess it's a con and maybe a pro. People are learning skills, but we no longer have the front end user interface. With our old system, it was Aleph, and so we had the Aleph Reporting Center, which was really useful. But anyway, a little bit of con. So accessing the data. So assuming you've been able to download it, or maybe your systems librarians have been able to download it and get it working, you do have to access the database, and because that's what you want. You want to create reports. So you need a database tool that can set up the connection to the Postgres database that LDLite creates. So here in the 5 colleges, like many in the FOLIO community, we use dbeaver, and we use the free version. There's also an enterprise version that has tons of bells and whistles. We're fine with the free version. You can always go to their site, which lists, specifically the differences in between the enterprise version and the free version. But we're good. So our installation, basically it's just one login, and we all log in with that same login. And we all have like read, write, access. So you might say, oh my gosh, are we scared that someone might delete something? And I think what you have to remember is that this is extracted from FOLIO. If we do make changes in one of the tables, that doesn't have any effect on FOLIO. And we actually update this, everything except for inventory, we update nightly. For inventory and Mark SRS, we update weekly. So here's some great resources, and I highly recommend, going to all of them. This is the website that talks about the library data platform and where things are. If you have questions about kind of LDLite or LDP1 or Metadb, there is a Slack workspace, and you can get help with how to construct queries of FOLIO data modeling, and people answer very, very quickly. I highly recommend joining this Slack space. To actually get to the code of LDLite, it's on GitHub, and there is kind of a instructions on how to install LDLite. So I just wanted to stop there for a moment and ask if there are any questions on what is LDLite, what it can do, the pros and cons, and the resources out there.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. So we've got a question on chat, so we can start with that. What's the link to the library data platform website? Okay, I can try to pull that. Yeah. Oh, thank you, Jen. Okay.
And let me post the one for the GitHub as well. For the Slack workspace, I think, do you need to have a invitation to join? I can't remember.
Oh, for the LDP Slack?
Yeah,
Yes, but once you're on, you can send the invitation to other people.
Okay.
I can try to send an invitation. Yeah. Who was the person? Yes, we can get you into the LEP Slack, which is where all the fun happens. Susan Turkle. Okay, yeah, Susan, we'll get you hooked into that. Yeah, we'll send you an invitation. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Angela. Angela's online. She just shared the. Thank you, Angela. All right. Are there any other questions?
If there are questions in the room, I'll just bring the mic to you and you can ask. No questions in the room. Okay, no questions in the room. So chat, it's on you.
All right. Well, it looks like we're questioned out. So I'm just going to continue and, please feel free to, we do have a new question. So no historical data means the data gathered in LDLite is just a snapshot, and that is correct. So what's really good is that you get the most current data at that time. But of course, if you only update, for example, every week, then the longer you update, the less current that data is. So even if you have, for example, LDP1, and maybe that's updated nightly, if you need immediate data, you can use LDLite to get a snapshot at that at that moment when you do that snapshot and bring down the data. Did that answer your question? All right.
Great question.
All right. So now, fingers crossed for the live demo. Woo! All right. So let me escape out of that and minimize that. So are you able to see my dbeaver?
Yes.
All right. And hopefully it's big enough.
Oh, it never is, but
I know.
it's pretty good.
It's pretty good. Yeah. All right. So, and I do have examples, in the screenshots in the presentation. So let me just give a brief intro to dbeaver. These are the databases that I'm connected to, which is just LDLite and FOLIO snapshot. And, how you connect is, new database connection. And this you would put Postgres, and then you would put in the host and your port number, and all of this information, which would be unique to you. I can show you what it looks like for our 5 colleges. So here you can see, here's our host and our port, and we have one username and password. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but there you go. So this is what it looks like for us. So if you're doing it, or your systems person, you should have all of this information when you're setting that up. And of course, if you want to connect to like the FOLIO snapshot, you can just send a message to Naseem Nassar on the LDP Slack as well. Yeah. So since we update this every night and also weekly, I tend to right-click here and just do a refresh. This kind of refreshes all of the tables. What are those? These are these are the schemas. I spend most of my time in inventory, and you can see here the tables, and we get into the tables. So the tables are where kind of the data from the API, where they're going. So alternative type might seem familiar, let me scroll down to instances. So here we have instance __ t. And so what is the difference in between these? So let's take a look. If I right click and do view data, so you can see, let me move this over a bit. It's a little squiggly mark, and there's this tons of information. And that's because this is the JSON data that has not been extracted. And you can see this here on the right side. And how I got there was just clicked on panels, and then you can select the format of the data, which is JSON. FOLIO's native language is JSON. So here you can see, you know, the UUID for the instance, the HRID, and if I'm using any acronyms that, you know, you need more clarification on, please let me know. Note, you know, here's a note. It's not staff only. Well, there's another note. Here's the title. So things, you know, the instance is that kind of folio, kind of brief record. For us, it's linked to or connected to a marked SRS bib. So this is kind of the information that you would expect with this. Now, the __ t is really the more exciting one, because this is all of that JSON extracted into convenient columns. Yay! So remember there was the, you know, JSON, you've got the open squiggly, and then, you know, there was the UUID, just called it the ID. Here it's in this nice column, the instance HRID, title, source, version, and everything from that JSON. So what does this look like? Let me copy this. This is an instance HRID, and I'm going to go to our folio production. And so this should look familiar. So here's our title. The source was Mark. So this is just the data seen through folio this time, instead of LDLite. Any questions about the structure and the __ t? So one of the, I think, more challenging things, and this isn't really related to, I mean, you see it in LDLite, but it really is kind of an underpinning of folio, and that is the folio data models. So you can see here that in my instance, I have a lot of UUIDs that, you know, I forget what these mean. A lot of the data goes off to other tables where you have information. So this explains the structure of, let's take it because we're doing the instance. So there's a table for administrative notes, alternate titles, classifications, and quite a few. So let's do, and sometimes it is confusing. So here, notice I don't see mode of issuance. But here is mode of issuance. So if I go back to instance T, and I want to look up that mode of issuance just to find the name, there it is. So this is unspecified and local. So in order to get the name, you have to go to this table, rather than going just to the instance table itself. So the challenge really is understanding how all of this data relates to each other and where to find it. So sometimes it's not in the area that you think it is. Though what is nice about LDLite is all of this is already like extracted for you. So if we took a look at this instance, a lot of times you have what are called JSON objects or arrays, and that information can get buried and difficult to get to. Where here, it's, even though it's split apart from the main information in instance T, you can still get to it. And by getting to that, what do I mean? So let's take a look at an example. And this is something that, this is a query that we run every single month. And this query is to find what we call orphan instances. So these are instances that aren't connected to a holdings or to an item. They are connected to an underlying MARC SRS bib, and they haven't been suppressed from discovery or staff suppressed. So why is it important to find these? These actually are harvested and they end up in discovery. So our patrons are very confused when they just see a bib record with no holdings and items. There's no way to, request them. They, I mean, because it basically the holdings and items are missing. So yeah, not ideal. How does this happen? Well, our case generally is single record import sometimes doesn't work as expected, or people forget to wait. Sometimes our FOLIO system can be a little slow, and so they'll click import a number of times. And of course, then you get multiple instances for bringing in that record. We use OCLC. So, and then people just forget about them. So we run this monthly. So what we need is the instance UUID. So we're basically looking for instances that are not connected to a holdings. And so you can see here, my main table where I'm gathering information is the instance __ T. And then I said, we have to get information in the other tables in query language. I do a lot of left joins, a left join to get to the holdings record from the instance. And then I also want to bring down the statistical codes. And this is only because of our local practice where if we bring in an instance by mistake or we're getting rid of an instance, we use a stat code called resource marked for a delete. And then we suppress it from discovery as well as staff suppress. So it doesn't get into the normal searches. And there's a little less clutter. So I bring it in, there's a statistical code on the instance level, but notice here that I have to go further to the statistical code table in order to get the names from the IDs. I also bring in users, and the reason I do that is that we are, as a consortium, our FOLIO is a shared bibliographic environment, but also LDLite is a shared bibliographic environment. So I run this report for all 5 of the colleges and including the Renaissance Center and the Yiddish Book Center. So having users, I can basically then parse the report based on the college. And I can, I will look for an example of that, of what we do. So the key here is that we don't want, we want instances where the UUID for the holdings record is null. because there is no holdings record connected to this instance. We also filter by date. Right now, this is the date that we went live, which, oh my gosh, was a year ago. We just had our year anniversary. Go us, woo! Then I also order by the username, and I decided to, this is brand new, I just did this last week. I split it at the @sign. Most of our emails here, it's, the first name, first initial, last name at UMass, or at Amherst, at Mount Holyoke, etc. So this means it's easier for me to kind of filter through those results for to prepare for everyone in the 5 colleges. So any questions about those tables so far? And I know that might be a lot of information. All right, excellent. So once you run this, you just click here to run, and it says execute query. Yay! Which is always a good sign. Though dbeaver will say when it doesn't like things. Some of the things that I've noticed it doesn't like, sometimes you do have to what's called cast the IDs as a UUID. LDLite is a little funny about that. The UUIDs are not always UUIDs. They're actually characters, string characters instead. So you do have to sometimes tell it to kind of like force the hand of it. Notice here that I didn't have to do that. Sometimes also you can, I do this occasionally, I forget to put a comma after things. Oopsie. So dbeaver will obviously catch all of those, which is really nice. I do like to work with a lot of aliases, and I generally pick dbeaver suggests aliases for me, and I generally pick those. I mean, I'm fine with that. So while this is running, I found you can of course export, and I would typically export as a CSV file, and this is what the data looks like exported. So our instance UUID, the HRID, the holdings, these are all blank. HRID because these are not connected to a holdings. The title, here's our statistical code, resource marked for deletion. Generally, if we have that, then this should be true. And then this is, you can tell this is the older version because I just had, oh no, institution. Here we go, Amherst. So you can kind of see how easy it is just to parse on this data. The admin, generally, this is EBSCO doing cleanup, and Steve Bischoff is our, like, I don't know, he's like, well, he's our systems librarian. So I guess he doesn't have an institution. He's our Uber systems librarian. So, and once you get into this form, you can kind of parse it like any Excel file that you have. So here you can see it ran very quickly. And I was getting data from the instance table, from the holdings table, from the user table, as well as the statistical code table. So there was a lot of, places this query needed to go and make, and join in order to make those connections. And yeah, it did a fairly good job. It was really very quick. And this is what it looks like. Then to export, you just right click and export the data. And here you do have options. I normally stick with CSV, next, single query, next, next. And I said, oh, I want everything to go into this folder, which is really nice. And I just use the default here. And then you can say next and then proceed. And then, it creates that output, which is really, really good. So once we have this list, then, for example, well, I share it with all of my colleagues across the 5 colleges, and then we can do our cleanup in Folio. So this has already been done. So you can see we're now in Folio production, in 5 colleges production, and you can see that this is, I marked this as fully suppressed. And I can show you why. Oops. Copy. Oh, yes. Yeah, someone was definitely overzealous with this title. This one actually has the holdings and the item. This one doesn't, and this one doesn't. Yeah, and these don't. We recently did have an issue with our single record import, which explains kind of the sometimes, yes. Well, anyway, so you can see, and since these are staff suppressed, general staff searching for these, they'll only find this active one, which is really very nice. Yeah. So another thing that I did very recently was EAST. So perhaps EAST is the Eastern Academic Scholars Trust Retention Program. It's both for monographs and shared serials print. So there is a yearly update, which basically is just you send them a marked file of all of your records that have, the UMass EAST commitment with it. So this one, I needed distinct instance UUIDs. I did start in source record storage, so the MARC tab. Now let's go take a look at this, because here you'll see inventory, but this is a separate schema. And this has the MARC records, kind of the JSON look, the records T, and T catalog. So let's take a look at MARC tab. And this is, hopefully it opens. It's rather large. So here you can see the SRS UUID, the matched, the instance HRID, and then here, these are all the same because it does it by field. So yeah, let's take a look at the columns. So you have the line, and then the field indicator 1, indicator 2, and subfield. So it really is this MARC SRS kind of deconstructed, so to speak. The records T is slightly different. This is where you can find this state of whether it's actual or old, and perhaps get more information on that. And it also has the raw record as well as the parsed record content. Generally, I really just stick to the MARC tab. So yeah. So in this case, I'm starting out with the source record MARC tab, and then I'm bringing in instance information as well as holdings and location. The reason for that is that I need to find, because we're one shared bibliographic environment, we share one folio, I need to find everything for UMass. Not our repository, not at Smith, and all of that. So I just want also distinct identifiers. And again, you can run this. Oh, that shouldn't be there. I ran this the other day. Huh. Oh, maybe, wait, oops. Well, this is really good. Oh, Oh, it worked. Okay, maybe someone can answer this. If I press the cursor here and press this, it won't work. But anyway, there you go. You learn stuff every day. So this is working. What other things that I use LDLite for? Obviously, I'm a metadata librarian, so this is all metadata-y. So here, I'm going to the electronic access table. So I'm looking for everything outside of the DVDs that has an access, basically an 856 or the electronic access URI. So for us, we don't want those in the bib records. We want them only in the holdings record. Because our EDS, which is our discovery tool, can sometimes get confused when both of those 856s are present. So this is really convenient. For the East, notice that here I just have a list of UUIDs. So when I export that, then I can simply, here, let me see if I can, I'll just take one example. I'll just copy that. I wouldn't do it this way, but I would split the file into manageable chunks and then say save as, let's do downloads, demo.csv. Now that I have that CSV file of that instance UUID, I can go to FOLIO, our FOLIO, and go to data export, and then and East is just the simple default instance exports job profile with the instance UUIDs and run. This will be really quick since it's just one. And so that's how we, obviously, a lot more than that, get those records. So that's kind of the interaction of how we use LDLite with our folio. So I just wanted to pause to make sure that we're good on time and if there are any other questions.
We're good on time. Do we have any questions in the room? Yes, just one second.
Hi, Jim. This is Adam from Skidmore, and I also use LDLite in my institution. But similar to what you stated, I came into it with knowing no SQL really at all. But we migrated from Voyager, and so we were using Microsoft Access. And if you've ever used that before, it has this like drag and drop query builder, which that I had always used that. I never really learned SQL. So I've been learning some on my own. And it's funny because some of the queries you showed, like finding East books, I've written very similar queries, but they look completely different than yours. So what do they say? More than one way to skin a cat. But my question for you is, and I apologize if I missed this, but are you planning to share any of these queries, or is there a place for like an LDLite query repository? And the reason I ask that is I've looked at some of the, I guess it's the LDP repository. I think there's a GitHub page for it, but having little SQL knowledge, it just blew my mind. Like some of those queries are so complicated and like so many lines of code. And, I went into it, I was like, oh, I'm going to read these queries and learn how to use SQL. And it just was so over my head. But like the query you have pulled up there, I mean, I've been using SQL long enough now that I can basically understand what's going on in your query because it's a lot simpler than those LDP one. So basic question is, are these going to be shared anywhere for the community of LDLite users to look at? Because I think it would be so helpful for people coming into it with little SQL knowledge.
And that's a great question. And I have to say that some of the more advanced ones, definitely like in agreements or, the ones for external statistics, I find very, very complicated. And I do write simple ones, but they work for me. And obviously, this is just one way of doing it. It's funny. Our systems librarian for the 5 colleges did this for our repository, and he did it a completely different way. But we both got the information that we needed to. And another interesting thing about this is you can also do a query search in FOLIO and get similar information, which is good. I don't know of a repository of sorts, but I've been trying to add my queries to GitHub, and one of our systems librarians has like more advanced queries as well, which I've put into chat, and I can add those to the presentation as well, and email, or just contact me and I can email those since you're in the room. Yeah, but very, very good question.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jen. I don't see anything else in the room, and I don't see anything else in the chat. So I think we're good for the moment.
All right, so let me show some more. I have another one, which it looks really simple. It's just a list of, let me start running it. It is a list of fields in the Mark SRS bibs. And we started doing such a query actually in Aleph in our old system before we migrated. And one of the reasons we did that is that, one, we had some Mark fields that weren't really Mark. In Aleph, you could actually type it in, and some people would, we found some Hebrew characters in some, and like the suppression was STA in Aleph, and sometimes that became SAT, and you can imagine the variations on Mark, that with people typing it in over a period of very long time that we had Aleph. And so we also wanted to get the count of kind of local fields in play before we migrated. Local fields, this would be, for example, 590, 790. Since we were migrating to one shared folio, we really wanted to, well, we no longer use those fields. We use what's, the subfield 5 with the Library of Congress organization code for each one of the schools, so that our users really know what the local note or who the local note applies to. So what this is doing, and basically all queries, you'd have a select and a from. So here I'm looking at that Mark tab in the folio source record schema, and I'm selecting distinct. The fields, that's just the Mark tag, or that 3 number tag, and then I'm counting them. And that's all I'm doing. I'm grouping them by a field and then ordering them by field. So hopefully this will show up soon. I'm not sure. Sometimes it takes, now remember, this is not querying folio. This is only querying this totally separate database. And again, and so we're Wednesday, so this information dates from Saturday. So it's not the most current because we only update our Mark tab weekly. So while that's running, I looked at that one. What else can I show you? Yeah, a lot of these, again, just showing, the same structure. I mean, what I really like about it is you can really get to pretty much everything, well, everything that I need to, as well as other people. So it makes it very, very convenient. Where'd it go? Oh, yay, here it is. All right. So what's really nice is because it's grouping it and then ordering it, you can see, this is the leader, and the 001 is generally the instance HRID, and then here we go. So you can kind of see we have a lot of fields. I'm always surprised at what we have, and then you get to like this and you're like, oh, there's only one. Oh no, which I don't know why there's only one, but it gives you kind of a different insight into the data that you have. Sorry for the scroll. I'm just going to scroll down to, let's see if we have any 590s, which they shouldn't have. Oops, where'd they go? Keep doing that. Oh, so, but we do have two 599s. So what happens with these when we run these reports, we simply share them, and then we have committees that work on them. So let me share kind of this. So we share pretty much Google Drives, and here we have report lists, and then here 2023, and you can see that we've been running the orphan instances by month. Here's our mark tag. We've been searching for government documents that aren't really government documents and doing that cleanup. And so, and a lot of times when we do this, because we know that people are kind of learning SQL at the same time, you can see here all results, and then we split it up by school. And then we try to include also the query that we ran to create this report. And that's been really helpful for people, because then they can just, copy and paste this into their own dbeaver. Yeah. And then, how do we do cleanup? Again, really, we export the records using data export. We have a number of custom ones, so we can get, holdings and items information, and then we can use data import to kind of do even more cleanup. One that we have tons of single record import. Actually, I probably should. Yeah, there we go. That's a little better. So here, for example, I'm doing cleanup on East. We transferred a number of items to our repository, but we forgot to update the East statement. It still had UMass instead of the repository information. So with those UUIDs, I exported that, fixed the record in MarcEdit, and then loaded them, obviously in little bits. Yeah, and I also did a test. So that's kind of our workflow here. So is there anything that someone wants to see, or perhaps I can write a query for something that you want to see or go through? Yes, Wei Ying. Yeah, we can't hear you. So if you can unmute and.
Sorry, I hit the wrong button.
Oh.
Sorry. This is a great presentation. Thank you very much. It's been very helpful.
You're welcome. All right, let me pause there and see. I'm going to stop my share, turn on my video, and see if there's any other questions or we are at time, but I can walk through maybe one or I don't know, Sharon, do you need to be out of the room?
No, lunch follows this, so the only deadline is our stomachs. But yeah, we can. Does anyone have any things that they'd like Jen to demo, or anyone online have any other questions or things you'd like to see demoed while we're here?
And I can understand it can be daunting, especially if you're just starting out with SQL. But not to worry, you can contact me or just join the LDP Slack workspace. And any question is a good question. Sometimes I ask things, I'm like, oh, it's right in front of me. Oh, okay, that's all right. So yeah, don't hesitate to reach out and ask.
Well, clearly, Jen, you were so thorough that there are no questions remaining. Oh, wait, do we have just many thank yous? So I think we're okay. Is there anyone in the room who has anything else? Okay. All right. So nothing coming from the room. So yeah, so shall we wind up the presentation?
Definitely, and I will add the 2 links to my GitHub and our 5C one to the presentation.
We can re-upload the presentation.
Okay, yeah. Alrighty. Sounds good. All right, everyone. Yeah, tomorrow.
Yeah, because there's another presentation coming up. But yeah, thank you so much, Jen. That was fantastic. As always, really, really appreciate your thorough coverage of LDLite. And thank you everyone for attending both in person and virtually. Really appreciate your participation, questions, and may the conversations continue.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, Jen.